Summary of Fever 1793 by Laurie Halse Anderson. In August of 1793, 14-year-old Matilda Mattie Cook's mother, Lucille Cook, wakes her up and scolds her for staying in bed too late. Polly, their service girl, is running late to work, so they need Maddie to help out right away. Maddie would rather think about getting away from Philadelphia, like Blanchard's hot air balloon did earlier that year, but she reluctantly does what is asked of her. Maddie's best friend and the cook at the coffee shop, Eliza, gives her a big breakfast but quickly sends her outside to take care of the yard. Maddie keeps daydreaming about her crush Nathaniel Benson and about owning her own businesses someday, but Mother interrupts her again, this time to tell her that Polly died suddenly of a fever. Maddie takes Polly's place at the coffee shop and hears her beloved grandfather argue with customers about reports of a spread of yellow fever in the city. After a couple of weeks, many people have died from the fever, but grandfather says there's no reason to worry. Pernilla Ogilvy, a rich person who lives nearby, asks Maddie and Lucille to tea one day. Maddie doesn't like Colette and Janine, Pernilla's snobby daughters, and she doesn't agree with Lucille's plan for her to marry a rich Ogilvy son, but she reluctantly goes along with it. Just as Janine was insulting the Cook Coffee House to start a fight with Maddie, Colette suddenly passed out from yellow fever. Soon, the fever stops everything in Philadelphia, and many wealthy families leave for the countryside. President Washington and other important politicians are also leaving the city. Grandfather keeps saying that the fever reports are overblown, but one day, when he and Maddie come back from running chores, they see Lucille being dropped off in front of the coffee house. She is very sick. Maddie spends a terrible night taking care of her feverish mother, who begs her to leave so she doesn't catch the fever. Maddie worries about losing Lucille and feels bad about the fights they've had. She thinks she hasn't learned anything from Lucille's quiet strength. The next day, Lucille's doctor says she has yellow fever and bleeds her to treat it. Grandfather agrees that he and Maddie should run away to the country while Eliza stays to take care of Lucille. A farmer and his family give them a ride. When they are only 10 miles from Philadelphia, however, guards and a doctor stop their wagon. Grandfather isn't allowed to go through the small towns because of his strange cough. He and Maddie are left alone in the woods with nothing to eat. Maddie is scared when she learns that her sick grandfather wants her to take charge, but she soon remembers how to find water and nuts to keep them alive. She even makes a homemade net and comes close to getting some fish with it. But when she goes to nearby farms in search of better food, she quickly gets lost and gets sick herself. Later, when she wakes up, she finds herself in the hospital getting better. A nurse named Mrs. Flagg tells her that grandfather brought her there. The new hospital, called Bush Hill, is run by French doctors who know more about yellow fever and don't agree with the bloodletting treatments used by American doctors. After Maddie gets better, she and grandfather ride home in a wagon. They find that Philadelphia is almost empty, with dead bodies in the streets, closed stores, and thieves taking advantage of the weak. Even the cafe has been broken into, and there's no sign of Lucille. They hope she got better and ran away. Grandfather looks sick and weak, so Maddie tells him to rest while she makes meager meals from the garden that hasn't been taken care of. Going into the city to find food is too risky. On their second night in the house, thieves break in through the open windows and wake Maddie up. When they find Maddie and hold her down, the noise wakes up grandfather, who pulls his gun on the guys. When one of the thieves attacks grandfather violently, Maddie takes grandfather's sword, cuts the man, and sends him running away from the house. When she gets back, grandfather is getting worse quickly. Before he dies, he tells her how brave she is. Maddie is very sad that she is really alone. The next morning, a man with a cart full of dead bodies drives by the house. Maddie helps him push grandfather's body to the city's cemetery. Maddie won't let grandfather's body be thrown into a common grave without a funeral, so she leads the gravediggers in a psalm. Then Maddie walks around Philadelphia idly until she finds Nell, an orphan girl who has been left alone. Before she knows what she's doing, she's grabbing Nell and carrying her around the city to find help. someone tells her to look for the workers from the Free African Society, and soon Maddie is reunited with Eliza, who has been caring for fever patients all over the city. Eliza tells Maddie that Lucille lived through the fever and went looking for her in the country. Eliza brings Maddie and Nell home to her brother Joseph's house, where Maddie takes care of Nell and Joseph's twin boys, Robert and William. Maddie soon talks herself into taking Nell to the orphanage, but when she gets there, the staff is overwhelmed with kids whose parents have died from the fever. She takes Nell home with a smile. She keeps staying at Joseph's house and helping Eliza care for people with fever in Philadelphia. One night, Maddie and Eliza come home to find Joseph crying over the twins and Nell, who have all gotten sick with the fever. Maddie chooses to take charge and moves the kids to the cafe, where the air is cooler and fresher. She and Eliza work very hard to take care of the sick children. Just as Maddie falls down in the yard, almost out of hope, the first frost of the season hits, ending the outbreak. Soon, the kids' fevers will go away, and farmers will bring food back to the market. Joseph is happy to see his kids again. As things get back to normal, Maddie spends more time with Nathaniel Benson and comes to an understanding with him, even though her family didn't like the idea at first. She also asks Eliza to join her in running the coffee shop, and the twins, Nell, and Nell's mother move in. When it reopens, the coffee shop does well right away, and Maddie has lots of good ideas for how to grow it in the future. But she feels empty because she misses Mother. When President Washington goes back to Philadelphia, the wagons and carriages of people who had left the city follow behind him. Last but not least, her friend Mrs. Luddington brought Mother home. Lucille and Maddie hug with tears in their eyes, and Maddie is shocked by how weak her mother is. Mrs. Luddington says that when Lucille got to the country and saw that Maddie wasn't there, she ran around looking for Maddie until she got sick and died. She got better by some miracle, and now she has to live a life of leisure from now on. Maddie is upset about how much her mother has changed, and she sees that she is now really in charge. A few weeks later, on a cold morning in December, Maddie wakes up before anyone else in the coffee shop. Unlike at the start of the book, she lets her mother sleep and quietly gets the coffee shop ready for another day of work. Even though she thinks about the outbreak and remembers the people she's lost, Maddie looks forward to a bright future.
About the author. Laurie Halse is the daughter of Joyce Holcomb Halse and the Rev. Franca Halse, Jr. She and her younger sister grew up in Potsdam, New York. They went to high school outside of Syracuse. Since the second grade, she has loved to write. As a teen, Halse spent a year as an exchange student in Denmark. In 1984, she got her degree from Georgetown University. She worked at the Philadelphia Inquirer early in her career. In the 1990s, she began writing books for kids and teens. Halse's first husband, Greg Anderson, gave her two girls, Stephanie and Meredith. She has been married to Scott Larrabee, her childhood friend, since 2004. Anderson is best known for her award-winning book Speak, which came out in 1999. It's about a young girl who has been sexually assaulted and is trying to deal with what happened. In addition to Fever 1793, she wrote the Seeds of America set of history books for young adults. She has won several awards, such as the Margaret A. Edwards Award from the American Library Association and the Scott Odell Award for Historical Fiction.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.